The offseason rumor mill is just getting started for the Chicago Bulls, and it's starting to heat up with rumors that the Chicago Bulls are back circling around Peyton Watson in restricted free agency. But could they actually get him? Why not? We're also going to talk about the connection to Micah Nori, and he could be coming with Matt Lloyd as the president. And is Matas Buzelis poised to make a Deni type leap in year 3? We're going to talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Bulls are once again being linked to Peyton Watson. And Peyton Watson expected to draw interest from a lot of teams in free agency. Now, number one, the Denver Nuggets are probably going to do everything they can to try to keep him, which means dumping off the contract of Cam Johnson, I should say, as well as other players to try to keep that. The Denver Nuggets are a team that does pay the luxury tax, but they don't like to pay the repeater tax. So when they do go into that apron, they like to kind of come back down out of that. And that's going to maybe leave the Denver Nuggets in the spot where they are going to have to dump off some big salaries. Now, I will say this, right? The Bulls they have been linked to Peyton Watson several times. They were linked to Peyton Watson at the trade deadline. Now they're linked back to him in the offseason. And this is to be expected. Peyton Watson is one of those restricted free agents that the Bulls are probably going to take a look at to see if they can get signed to an offer sheet. Now, the question becomes about, would the Denver Nuggets match that offer sheet? Their salary cap situation is going to be tough for them to maneuver, right? And with the Denver Nuggets, possibly getting eliminated in the first round here, we'll see what happens with this series with the Minnesota Timberwolves without Anthony Edwards in it now. There have already been rumors that they can make some big wholesale changes to that roster this upcoming season. They are $10 million over the first tax apron before they make a single move. And that is with so much of their roster, unrestricted free agents when it comes down to it. So they're going to have to ask some tough decisions. Are they willing to lose Tim Hardaway Jr. for nothing? Are they willing to do that, right? Like, players like that they have, Bruce Brown, another player that's an unrestricted free agent, could walk away for nothing. When you look at it right now, the Denver Nuggets only have a handful of players under contract. That's Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, Christian Braun, Jonas Valanciunas, Zeke Naji, Julian Strawther, Deron Holmes, and are the only players that are under contract. With Jalen Pickett has a team option, and they have KJ Simpson, who is on a two-way contract, right? So that's right there is 10 roster spots. They have to fill out another few one of those. So, to keep Peyton Watson, who's probably going to be getting offer sheets upwards of $30 million, they're not only going to have to trade away a player like Cam Johnson, but they're also going to maybe have to trade away like Jonas Valanciunas, right? Or allow him out of his contract so he can go back overseas, something like that. That's just to keep Peyton Watson. He's going to get a $25 to $30 million offer because of the nature of free agency. And so the question becomes about, is that worth the Bulls with where they are right now to overpay for a player like that? We'll see. Denver is going to have the rights to match any offer that he gets. Any offer that he gets, they can match when it comes down to that. But the Stein line did say that both the Lakers and the Bulls, so this is Mark Stein, registered trade interest in Watson leading up to the in-season deadline for deals on February 5th. Although it must be noted that Chicago's front office will soon have a new lead voice after a recent outing of former Nuggets executive Arturas Karnisovas. In my conversations with various teams during the season, I've heard raves for strides Watson has made as a ball handler and shot creator, and how he operates in isolation on the perimeter with tangible comfort and poise. Watson himself credits that improvement to the foundation he built during 19 games worth of valuable reps with Denver's Grand Rapids Gold affiliate in the G League when he was a rookie. Full players with first-round pedigree would relish such an assignment. Watson, guys get caught up in the optics or the embarrassment of it. It's like a demotion. So, Peyton Watson saying that, I didn't feel demoted by going to the G League. I actually used it to work on my game. And, we've seen that happen for players before. Peyton Watson is a player that was drafted 30th overall, so it's not like he was a lottery pick. But you look at the way that he's grown each of his 4 years in the season. His first year, he played 23 games, started 2, he averaged 3.3 points. His second season, he played 80 games, started 4, averaged 6.7. His third season, he started 18, played in 68, averaged 8.1. And then this season, he played in 54 games, averaged 14.6 points per game, 49% from the field, 41% from the three-point range, was the highest of his career, also the highest volume, taking over 3.5 threes per game. Peyton Watson is a good player that's worth investing in. But we're not just going to gas it either. There is a little bit of risk, right? When a player has this type of leap right before going into restricted free agency, there's always a risk involved in that. What if that one season is the outlier? What if that's not the player that he's become? That was just a hot season for him. But there's the other side of it too, to where you can say, hey, this is a 23-year-old kid going into his 5th year in the NBA. What if that's just the beginning of him really making that leap? Like, people look at this as a leap. What if this is just the start, really, of the player that he can become, and you get in on the ground level with that and get him in your building early and finish developing him right along with Matas Buzelis, Josh Giddey, Noah Essengay, your 2 first-round picks this year? That's the type of thing that you're looking at with this one. I still do think it does come down to what position the Bulls do draft in free agency, but the registered interest in Peyton Watson makes sense. I'm somebody who, I'm not against it. There are some Bulls fans that have said things like, that they don't want the Bulls to spend big on a free agent like Peyton Watson with it's only really one season. Like, even a guy like Walker Kessler, at least you have more seasons of that, right? Like, you have more of a runway, even though he's injured a lot too. You could say that, people would rather, wait and see what's going to happen with Isaiah Hartenstein. And I get that, right? But for me, I look at this Peyton Watson thing and I say this. Not only would it make sense for the Bulls to try to buy on Peyton Watson now, the most they can give him is a 4-year deal anyway. By the end of that 4 years, what if Noah develops, somebody else develops, you don't have to pay him again, those type of things. But if you are going to try to make a move for Peyton Watson now, and the thing with this is too, and I guess we got to look at this part, where is these leaks coming out for that the Bulls are going to be interested? We don't even have a front office exec right now. Like, we don't even have that right now, right? So, maybe there's a little bit of gas in that, but we'll see when it comes down to it. I like the player that Peyton Watson has become, and I'm not mad at taking a shot on a player, right? Peyton Watson this year, the Denver Nuggets were 3.7 points better per 100 possessions when he was on the court. That's just the reality of it. Their effective field goal shooting percentage went up by almost 3, all those type of things. But for the defensive side of the ball, opposing teams scored 3 points more per 100 possessions when he was on the court. And a player that is known as a two-way player, you want to see kind of more than that, right? But again, the Denver Nuggets defense was questionable for all the entirety of the season, so we can't really put that just on Peyton Watson either. Like I said, I look at this and I say, if Peyton's the guy, I'm perfectly fine with it. If he's not the guy, cool, right? If the Bulls don't end up trying to put an offer sheet, they could very well, let's say they do the flip side of this. What if the Bulls are the team that takes on Cam Johnson's contract, so then they can get, a draft asset back, so the Denver Nuggets can re-sign Peyton Watson? I'm not against that either, right? So, there's a lot of different routes and avenues the Bulls can go, but we still don't know what the methodology is going to be because we don't know who the front office exec running this team is going to be. So, I love hearing it. One of the quotes from Peyton Watson was, I was in the trenches doing that dog work. And we need somebody on this team that's going to do that dog work. We need that. So, in regards to that, I'm not mad at that at all. And I don't think that would be a bad thing to see from the Chicago Bulls by any stretch of the imagination. If they want to be aggressive and going out there and getting a guy like Peyton Watson who's ready to make that leap, I'm not mad at it at all. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. How do you feel about the Bulls potentially pursuing Peyton Watson in restricted free agency this year? Do you think that's a good use of your allocations? We'll see. Now, Peyton Watson, I keep saying quotes from him. This is a direct quote from Peyton Watson. I always knew deep down in my heart I was a pro. So I wanted to exhibit those pro habits early and show people that I'm not a cancer in the locker room. I wanted everybody to see the type of kid I am. Hey, man, I tell you what, mindset, stuff like that, we need people like that with that dog mentality in Chicago. We're trying to build a dog team here. I don't mind people like that. With that said, let's move on. So there have now been more rumors in regards to the Chicago Bulls and who could be their next head coach. Now, I will say this. This seems kind of more so built around the fact that Matt Lloyd is reportedly the favorite to come to the Chicago Bulls and landing that. But this one comes from Michael Scotto, who said this. Connolly's right-hand man and general manager Matt Lloyd is considered arguably the front runner for the lead executive role with Chicago Bulls. If Lloyd indeed is hired by the Bulls, Timberwolves lead assistant coach Micah Nori would be a strong candidate for Chicago's head coaching position. Now, this has popped up a lot over the last 24 hours. You guys will know us here at Chicago Bulls Central actually covered this first. So, we talked about it when we were going down with it. I just love to get to my own horn every once in a while, right? But I think that when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, the thing that really makes them a good franchise to look at and try to model yourself after is that they got themselves from in the dog days of hell and have built themselves up to a legit team in the Western Conference, has gone to the Western Conference Finals for 2 straight years. Doesn't look like that may not happen this year again with Anthony Edwards' injury, so we'll see what happens there. But this is a franchise that has done it the right way. And so you look at poaching guys from that and what that can mean for your team. And the Bulls are trying to find that for their squad. So now when you look at that, so you could be getting Matt Lloyd, who has familiarity here in Chicago, who's been here. And could he bring over Micah Nori, somebody that he's familiar with? They're now, you guys know, my favorite coaching candidate is Chris Quinn. Now, we haven't heard much about Chris Quinn and even leaving Miami yet. We haven't really heard much about him in any of these spots. Sam Cassell is another name that's worth bringing up. But there are now 2 names in regard to this. Of course, Micah Nori. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Tiago Splitter. But what would make Micah Nori a good head coach? Well, when you look at him, he has his career trajectory is very similar to Tom Thibodeau in the sense that he's been a coach for a very long time. He's never got that opportunity, to be a head coach, but it seems like he's ready. And sometimes it takes people longer to get ready. He has 23 years of NBA experience between coaches with the Raptors, the Kings, the Nuggets, and the Pistons, right? And now, of course, with the Timberwolves as well. He's worked under guys like Mike Malone, Dwayne Casey, Chris Finch. So he's worked under guys real big. He's one of the guys that has gotten credit for crafting the defensive system of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Also, late game decision planning, which is something the Bulls were lacking at times under Billy Donovan, right? His in-game management is considered to be elite when it comes down to it, and he has really good leadership qualities as well. You have to find yourself a leader. And I do think that a guy that's able to be a leader with players that are going to be getting paid double than him, it really stands out. It stands out even more when you've been giving that leadership acumen as an assistant on a bench, right? So, when you look at it, he's developed really good players. He's developed Rudy Gobert. He's developed Karl-Anthony Towns. He's helped develop, Anthony Edwards. He's helped develop players. He's known as a really good communicator in regards to that one. So the extensive experience that Micah Nori does have instantly makes him a really good head coaching candidate. Now, on the flip side of that, we see some long-term assistants get their shot at head coach and not work out. That's a possibility, right? And I think that's the one thing that's holding Micah Nori back. Now, he has had to step up and be the interim head coach when Chris Finch was injured. He did showcase his ability there in late game situation coming off. That was during the playoffs as well in 2024. He coached really well in that time. So you've seen a little bit of that. So Micah Nori, when you look at building and bringing over a culture, trying to build a culture with the Bulls do need, we haven't had a culture that's worth fucking talking about in a decade plus, right? So if you're trying to build that, it seems like that. And I do like the parallels with Micah Nori and Tom Thibodeau because that was the last time it really felt like we had a positive culture here with Chicago. So much so that it became the players versus the front office. Then the front office felt like they had to get his ass up out of here, right? So those are the type of things that you're looking at. But as much as I love Chris Quinn, and Chris Quinn has been a guy that I've legitimately talked about for the last 3 years, anytime something's come up with potentially moving on from Billy Donovan, Chris Quinn has been the guy that I've gone to. Micah Nori and Tiago Splitter have now become almost right up there with those guys. Listen, and maybe I'm getting caught up in the moment. I can admit that maybe I'm doing that. But when you look at Tiago Splitter, to me, you see a guy in Tiago Splitter that to me has already shown, hey, I can take over a team. I can develop players. I can coach a team and get the most out of that roster. When you look at the injuries to Shaedon Sharpe, injury to Scoot Henderson, and then Scoot, even when he wasn't injured, was a slow burn to really become the player that we saw him eventually look like in the playoffs. When you see all of that, right, and you see a player that just really gives tons of heart and effort, I tell you what, I'm not against Tiago Splitter at all. And I know there are some Bulls fans that don't like the concept of it, but to me, when you had to learn on the job through as much stuff as Tiago Splitter has had to learn from and still find a way to be above 500 when easily an interim head coach, 2 of your best players out for large chunks of the season, right? That season, if that season went left and they would have won 26 games, nobody would have blamed them for it because of everything that's going on. But then on top of that, you have a player like Deni who have his breakout season. You have Scoot Henderson have a breakout playoff run. You have all those things happen under an interim head coach that apparently, their owner doesn't want to keep. I would not be mad at all at Tiago Splitter coming and getting this job. So, while I still love Chris Quinn, I would love the concept of Sam Cassell as well. I think that Micah Nori and Tiago Splitter have become two of the more actual realistic options for the Chicago Bulls here. And let me know what you guys think on that down below. I love those two guys as options for the Bulls. And, I wouldn't be mad at either one of them. I think if it is, if it's Micah Nori, he has a lot of experience. I think you still want to have his staff built with some veteran coaches. If it's Tiago Splitter, I really want some veteran assistants in there. I actually wouldn't be mad at Wes Unseld or Dan Craig, one of those two guys staying on and then finding some other assistants for him in some other places. You just never know what's going to happen there. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Hearing now that, Mike Scotto does say that, there's a legit chance that Micah Nori could be the favorite to land head coach if Matt Lloyd does, land that job. Or how do you feel about Tiago Splitter legitimately having a chance to become the Chicago Bulls head coach? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last topic before we get out of here. We just talked about the Portland Trailblazers and their head coach, Tiago Splitter. I want to talk about Deni, right? And I want to talk about him because of the leap that he made in this year, right? And this is a player that, he is the perfect example of why you can't rush the player development sometimes. For some people, it just takes longer. Now, I will say this, the first 3 years of Deni Avdija were mad mid, right? Year 4, he made the leap from going from 9.2 points per game to 14 points per game. Then in year 5, 16.9 points per game. Then this season, 12.4 points per game, right? So he made that leap. And I think that what you saw in that leap from him was that this is just a player that took some time to acclimate to being in the States, to playing the United States game, to being an NBA player. And the season that he had was great. 24 points per game on 46% shooting from the field, only 31% shooting from three. He got to the free throw line 9 times per game, one of the most foul players in the league. 6.7 assists, 7 rebounds per game, right under a steal per game as well. Deni Avdija made several steps this year, and it was good to see. The question becomes about, do the Bulls have one of those guys in Matas Buzelis? And I'll say this, Matas's first 2 years in the league are already better than Deni Avdija's first 2 years in the league. And that's why when people try to say things on who a player can be this early on, I always say, listen, you can't say that about a player. If you would have gone after year 3 of Deni, most people would have been like, oh, he's a bust, right? And it took until really year 4 when he started really looking like an NBA player. Matas Buzelis has looked like an NBA player since year 1, right? So there wasn't even a question on if Matas looked like an NBA player. This is why when people like Winton Mahorn say things about, well, Matas hasn't proved anything. Matas in year 2 already had a season comparable to Deni Avdija in year 4, right? And so that leap, he's 4 years younger than Deni Avdija as well. I do think that Matas Buzelis is poised for a breakout. 16 points per game last year. He did that on 46% shooting from the field, 34% shooting from 3, taking 6.4 threes per game, up from 3.3 his rookie year where he shot 36%, which is really good. I want to see him be a little bit more choosy with those 3-pointers. 1.5 blocks per game, almost a steal per game as well. 5.8 rebounds that he had per game. Matas made a nice step last year. But the question becomes about when can that leap from Matas comes? I've changed my mindset, right? Typically around year 3 or 4 is where you start seeing a player make a leap. I think now you have to look at it as age. I think around the 22, 23-ish, maybe 24-ish year season is really where you're starting to see some players make that leap at, not till that age of 23 or 24. So Matas has another couple of years before he gets to that point, but it's coming, right? And so the question now becomes about, if Matas does make that leap in year 3, what does that do to accelerate the Chicago Bulls rebuild, right? That's where you have to. He doubled his averages last season from 8.6 points to 16.3, right? The leap in attempts as well, right? When you look at it, his field goal shooting percentage rose when he took more actual field goals. The 3-point shooting percentage went down. He also took on a much larger role post-trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls. And over the last 25 games for the Bulls, 18.9 points, 6.9 rebounds, 2.1 assists, 1.6 blocks. Those are all things that we saw from Matas Buzelis after the trade deadline, where the things were built a little bit more around him. And I do think if the Bulls get the right coach, the right development, the right system around Matas, we can absolutely see Matas make a huge leap next season, and one that could be, very well worth it. How much should the Bulls be prioritizing the development of Matas? I think it has to be something that is asked in the coaching interviews and maybe even was in the executive interviews. I would want to hear a coach's game plan for how to continue to develop Matas Buzelis' game. Also, I want to hear, what are you going to do with Giddey? What are you going to do with Noah Essengate? What are you going to do for their two top 20 picks that we have? But I want to hear the plan for that. I would love to hear that because I think there are no guarantees in basketball. All you can do is try to put yourself in a position to maximize on things. And Matas Buzelis' development is something that should be looked at to be maximized this offseason. If you maximize the potential of Matas Buzelis, the development of Matas Buzelis, put the right pieces around him, whether that means the coaching, the development, the system, whatever that is, I think that we can see a real big leap from Matas. And Matas is one of those players that has already shown that he is an NBA player. Now, the question that becomes, and I always say this about Matas, is how good of an NBA player are you going to be? That is the question that's here. Are you just a good starter, or can you be a little bit more than that? Mentality of Matas Buzelis matters just as much as the tools that he has. Matas has every tool in the shed, but he has the right mindset as well. He already made a jump from rookie to sophomore season. Now it comes about that true breakout. You have to have the right system. You have to have the opportunity. You have to make the most of it as well. And can you do that? The new regime needs to maximize Matas, where maybe in development overall, whereas Billy Donovan and his staff didn't in the way that we kind of wanted to see. Could that happen? We'll see for the Chicago Bulls. But watch out for Matas Buzelis, and especially if you continue to add young pieces that play in transition, play with speed like a Peyton Watson or things that we're seeing, you get that scorer as well. I'm telling y'all, this Bulls rebuild may not take as long as what some people were initially thinking. Some people said 3-4 years. We'll see if it ends up taking that long. But that's going to do it for today's episode. This offseason is more than just about adding names. It's about building the right foundation for the Chicago Bulls. Could Peyton Watson be the right swing for the Chicago Bulls? We could be. Could Micah Nori or Tiago Splitter be a culture setter here? We'll see. Matas Buzelis, he is going to be sticking around for a whole nother rebuild, and we're going to see what happens. Make sure you guys stay locked in with us all offseason. Let us know your thoughts and comments on all of that down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You guys can follow us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. That is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.